Hey Reddit, sit down and get comfortable. This is the story of how I, an ordinary guy who works with computers, turned into a detective, prosecutor, and executioner all in one. It took me 14 months from the first suspicion to the final point, and another 8 months to clean up the aftermath. A lot of people told me, Jake, just let it go. But when you're robbed, humiliated, used as an ATM, and then cheated on with your best friend using the money you were saving for a house, forgiving isn't an option. I'm not a psychopath. I'm just a methodical guy who got tired of being the victim. My name is Jacob Reed, but everyone calls me Jake. I'm 34, at the time the story ends. I'm a senior network engineer at Midwest Telecom Solutions. We service small to medium businesses across 3 states. The work is boring, but it pays well, about $130,000 a year plus bonuses. My appearance is classic. IT guy, 5 feet 10 inches, 180 pounds, a receding hairline that I just shaved bald now, dark-rimmed glasses, a beard on the edges. I don't go to the gym, but I stay in shape with bike rides in the summer. I'm not the guy women turn their heads for on the street. And I got used to that. Emma, 30 at the time of the breakup, is the classic girl from a good family, who always wanted more. 5 feet 5 inches, slim, blonde hair to her shoulders, always perfect nails. She worked as a marketing manager at a startup called Bloom Digital. Salary $85,000. She loved nice restaurants, Michael Kors bags, and trips we couldn't really afford. But I loved her. Hell, I really did. Kyle, 31, was my brother from freshman year of college. We shared a dorm room, drank cheap beer together, failed math together, lent each other money. Kyle is the guy whose smiles and sales just fall into his lap. 6 feet 1 inch, toned, he'd been going to the gym since 18, dark curly hair, blue eyes. He was always the one who'd take the girl right in front of me, but I forgave him because that's just how he is. After college, we worked in different fields but stayed close. When his wife Lauren filed for divorce 2 years ago, I was the first to show up with pizza and whiskey. I lent him $5,000 for a lawyer. He paid it back 6 months later, but I never brought it up. That was our friendship. Now let's unravel this mess from the very beginning. Emma and I got engaged in November. The ring cost $15,000, 2 of my monthly paychecks after taxes. I took out a bank loan. She said, yes, with tears in her eyes, and I was the happiest man in the world. We started planning the wedding for October of the following year. Bloody Creek. Vineyard, stupid name, but beautiful place. 120 guests, open bar, live music. Emma handled all the planning herself. I just handed over my card. In February, she started staying late at work. First an hour, then 2. She'd say, new client, need to launch a campaign. I didn't check. I trusted her. In March, she said her coworker Lisa was going through a breakup, and they'd have coffee after work sometimes. I said, sure, support her. I knew Lisa, short, a little heavy, always stressed. Harmless. In April, Kyle's divorce became official. He called me in tears. Jake, she took the apartment, the dog, and my pride. Can I come over? I said, come over, brother. He showed up on a Friday night with a bottle of Jameson. Emma made pasta. We sat in the kitchen, Kyle telling me what a bitch Lauren was. Emma listened sympathetically, put her hand on his shoulder. I thought, what a kind woman she is. She suggested he come by any time so he wouldn't be alone. I agreed. In May, everything changed. Emma bought a new phone, an iPhone 14 Pro Max, pink. She said the old one was slow. I didn't object, but she put a passcode on it and removed my fingerprint access. She said, there are private photos from my bridesmaids, a surprise. Again, I believed her. The first real suspicion came on June 3rd. I got home from work at 6:30 p.m., as usual. Emma wasn't there. I called, no answer. Then she texted. Staying late at Lisa's, discussing invitations. Don't wait up. I made dinner, ate alone, watched an episode of The Mandalorian, and went to bed at 11 p.m. I woke up at 2 a.m. to her coming into the bedroom. I didn't turn on the light, just said, late. She said, yeah, Lisa wouldn't stop talking. She smelled of perfume I hadn't bought her and a little bit of men's cologne. I thought it was just from the taxi. A week later, I found panties in the washing machine that I hadn't bought. Black lace, too risque for Emma who usually wore cotton. I asked, are these yours? She laughed. "Oh, I bought them at Victoria's Secret, wanted to surprise you, but forgot." I wasn't surprised, because we hadn't had sex in 3 weeks. She was always too tired. In July, I went to Kyle's office for lunch. He worked at Dataflow Solutions, Cloud Sales. I just wanted to say hi and return a book he'd asked for. When I walked into the lobby, I saw Emma. She was getting off the elevator with Kyle. They were laughing. Kyle had his hand on her elbow. Just a gesture, but so intimate. I called out, "Emma?" She turned around, and her face went white for a second. Then she smiled. "Hey, honey. I came by to go over Kyle's toast for the wedding. He's your best man, remember?" Kyle slapped me on the shoulder. "Yeah, bro, we're writing a masterpiece. Gonna make everyone cry." I smiled, but something clicked inside. Wrong. I'm no idiot. I work with data. If you want to understand a system, you start logging everything you can. The first thing I did was buy a little GPS tracker on Amazon for $40. It was the size of a coin, ran on a battery for 2 weeks. I attached it with a magnet under the rear bumper of her Honda CR-V while she slept on a Sunday morning. Second, I configured our home router to log all traffic. It's simple. With DDWRT firmware, you can enable logging of all connections. I knew when Emma's phone connected to the Wi-Fi, when it woke up, when it sent data. I also set up a fake access point named Xfinity_Wi-Fi, but that was overkill. Third, I bought a small Sony audio recorder that ran for 50 hours on one battery. I hid it under the driver's seat of her car. It recorded whenever the car was on. That's illegal in our state, two-party consent, but I didn't care. I started collecting data on July 10th. Here's what I learned in the first 2 weeks. GPS logs. Her car regularly stopped at the Hampton Inn on I-55, 12 miles from home. At Kyle's apartment, 8 miles. And once at a jewelry store in a town where we hadn't bought the ring. She was only home at night. On Saturday, July 15th, her GPS showed a stop at the Hampton Inn from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. She told me she was at Lisa's until 11 p.m. Then drove home and slept on the couch so she wouldn't wake me. I checked, the couch was untouched. Audio recordings. Oh, that was the worst. I listened to the first recording on July 17th. At first, I heard engine noise, the radio, her talking to someone on speakerphone. But on July 18th at 7:30 p.m., I heard it. She pulled into a parking lot. The sound of a car door opening. Then a male voice. "Kyle, Emma." Phew, this day was endless. Jake asked about the panties, I almost shit myself. "Kyle. Tell him they're for roleplay. He'll believe it. He's as dumb as a post about that stuff." "Emma. Don't say that. He's just trusting. That's his problem." Then a kiss sound. Then a hotel room door opening. 15 minutes later, the recording became explicit. I turned it off. My hands were shaking. I sat in the kitchen and stared at the wall for 2 hours. But I didn't blow anything up. I didn't call or drive over. I turned off the recorder, drank some whiskey, and wrote in my notebook, July 18th, 7:30 p.m., Hampton Inn, room 212, based on keycard sound. Confirmed. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered 14 confirmed meetings. They met every 2 to 3 days. At hotels, at his apartment, once in his car at a parking lot. She told me she had late client meetings, going to her mom's. Lisa is crying. I nodded, smiled, played along. The scariest part wasn't the cheating. The scariest part was when I checked our joint bank account on July 25th. We were supposed to have $28,000 in savings by then. There was $11,000. I checked the transaction history. $5,000 had been sent on June 10th with the note, wedding photographer. $3,000 on June 20th, catering. $4,500 on July 5th, decor. All transfers were to an account in the name of Emma Wright. Kyle Thompson. A joint account at another bank, First Midwest Credit Union. I checked if I could see the balance without logging in. No, it was closed. But I already understood. She wasn't just cheating. She was stealing. I started digging through her laptop. She left it in the living room. I guessed the password on the second try. Milo 2019 inches, her dead cat's name plus the year. Inside, I found a folder called Wedding that was password protected. I spent 20 minutes guessing. The password was Kyle 2023. God, she was so stupid. Inside that folder were Screenshots of their Telegram conversations. She took screenshots just in case. Photos of my passport and social security number. An Excel file called Assets. It listed my 401k, $43,000. My car, remaining loan $12,000. My savings, $8,000 in a separate account. And her plan for how to transfer everything before the wedding. A letter from a jeweler. Confirmation that my engagement ring was appraised at $14,000 and they would buy it for $11,000 cash. I didn't sleep that night. I sat and watched her sleeping. She was smiling in her sleep. I thought, how can someone be such a monster? The next day, I went to a lawyer. Not a cheap one. The best in town, Steven Berger, 67, gray hair, gold-rimmed glasses, an office on the 20th floor with a river view. I paid $500 for the first hour of consultation. He listened to me, looked at my printouts, and said, "Young man, you are either the smartest client I've ever had, or the most dangerous psychopath. You have enough for a civil fraud lawsuit. But if you want criminal charges, you need more. You need them to confess, or you need to catch them transferring money from your account without your knowledge." I said, "I'll do it." I decided not to break off the engagement before the wedding. I wanted them to invest even more resources into their deception. I became the perfect fiancé. I bought flowers, gave massages, said nice things. Emma thought I was as in love as a fool. It was disgusting. Kissing her knowing that an hour earlier her lips had been on Kyle. But I held on. In mid-September, she said, "Jake, we need to pay an extra $3,500 for the wedding cake. I don't have enough in the account. Can you transfer from your personal account?" I transferred, and immediately took a screenshot. I also started recording all our conversations with a voice recorder in my pocket. That's legal in our state, one-party consent. On September 25th, she said, "Kyle is so sad today. I'm going to go to his place to support him. You don't mind, do you?" I said, "Of course, he's my friend." She left at 7 p.m. and came back at 2 a.m. The GPS recording confirmed the hotel. The next day, I found an empty Trojan Magnum condom wrapper in the trash. Kyle always bragged about buying those. She didn't even bother to throw it away somewhere else. Kyle was acting strange during this period. He avoided direct eye contact. When we met at a bar, he was constantly looking at his phone. I asked, "You okay?" He said, "Yeah, work. Sales, blah blah blah." He didn't even offer to buy a drink for my health. Once he said, "Jake, have you ever thought that if you hadn't met Emma, then?" I interrupted, "But I did meet her. And I'm happy." He nodded, but his smile was strained. On October 5th, I decided to see how far they would go. I told Emma, "Let's have dinner for Kyle on Saturday. It's been a while since the three of us hung out." She turned pale. "Oh, honey, Saturday is Lisa's birthday, I can't. But you and Kyle can go to a bar." I said, "Okay." On Saturday, I showed up at Kyle's apartment at 7 p.m. with a 6-pack of beer. He was alone, but I noticed 2 coffee cups in the kitchen. One with lipstick on it. I didn't say anything. We drank, talked about football. At 9 p.m., I left. I got in my car and drove to the Hampton Inn. Emma's car was there. I didn't go in. I just sat and watched the light in room 212. Then I drove home and went to bed. At 11:30 p.m., she came in, smelling of perfume and alcohol. I pretended to be asleep. The wedding was scheduled for November 4th. Guests had already bought plane tickets. The vineyard was paid for. Catering was ready. I was waiting. But on October 22nd, something happened that accelerated my plan. I received an email from an unknown sender, lisawilson1988@gmail.com. Subject: "Please read this. It's important." I opened it. The text: "Jake, I'm Lisa. I can't stay silent anymore. Emma and Kyle have been together for 6 months. They plan to divorce you after the wedding, take your money, and move to Costa Rica. Kyle has a contact there who can help open an account. I overheard them talking. They were laughing at you. She called you, my little ATM. I don't know how to live with this. I'm attaching screenshots of a conversation Emma accidentally sent me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was scared. She was blackmailing me with a story that never happened. Please don't tell her it was me. Destroy them, Lisa." Attached were 8 screenshots. In them, Emma wrote to Lisa, "He's so stupid, really." I told him the cake cost $3,500, and he transferred it without blinking. Another $10,000 and we'll have the down payment for the house in Costa Rica. Kyle already found a realtor. And another. The wedding is just a performance. Afterward, I'll get half his 401k under our state's law. He doesn't even know that the prenup he signed, I swapped out. He signed a fake document, and I destroyed the original. Now he's mine. I went cold. The prenup. I had indeed signed some document she called a preliminary property agreement, but I hadn't read it carefully because I trusted her. She had swapped it. My copy was a blank piece of paper with my signature on it. I checked. Yes, an empty paper with my signature. I called my lawyer. Berger said, that's a crime. Document forgery and fraud. Now we have everything, but I suggest we wait until the wedding day. Hit them where it hurts most, in front of everyone. The plan was ready. On the morning of November 4th, I woke up at 6 a.m. Emma was sleeping next to me. I got up, dressed quietly, and drove to the vineyard. I spoke to the venue manager, Mr. Garcia, who hated Emma for how she talked to him. She yelled at him over the color of tablecloths. I said, Mr. Garcia, I have a request. At 3 p.m., before the ceremony, I want you to turn on the projector and screen. I brought a USB drive. Don't ask why. He nodded. I paid him $200 in cash. At 11 a.m., I went to Emma's parents' house. Her mother, Patricia, was a sweet woman who didn't know anything about her daughter. Her sister Megan, on the other hand, was always cynical. I said, Patricia, please come to the hall 15 minutes early. I have a surprise for Emma, and I need you in the front row. She was delighted. At 2 p.m., I stood in front of the altar in the suit Emma had chosen, gray, with a bow tie. I looked out at the 120 chairs filling up with guests. My parents were in the third row. Kyle stood next to me as the best man. He smiled, slapped me on the shoulder. Well, bro, last day of freedom. I looked at him and said, yeah, last day. He didn't understand. At 2:45 p.m., Emma was in the bridal room. I walked up to Mr. Garcia and said, turn it on in 5 minutes. At 2:50 p.m., all the guests were seated. Music was playing. Instead of the bride coming out, a PowerPoint splash screen appeared on the projector. I took the microphone from the MC. I said, dear guests, before Emma comes to the altar, I want to show you a short presentation about our love. It's a surprise for her. I pressed the remote. Slide 1. Title. Our Love, A Timeline of Trust. Subtitle. Or How I Was Robbed for 8 Months. Slide 2. Screenshot of the GPS tracker map of the Hampton Inn. Red dots for 14 nights. Slide 3. Photo of Kyle's car in the hotel parking lot. I took it from the bushes on October 5th. Slide 4. Bank statement. Transfers totaling $48,000 to an unknown account. Slide 5. Screenshot of Emma's conversation with Lisa. He's my little ATM. Slide 6. Photo of my engagement ring on a jewelry store website with the tag, sold. Slide 7. Audio player. I pressed play. Emma's voice came through the speakers across the hall. Kyle, he won't find out about the money. He doesn't even look at statements. We'll leave after I get half his 401k. Kyle's voice. What if he finds out? Emma. Then we'll say it was for the wedding. He'll believe it. He's such a loser. The hall was silent. I heard someone hiccup. My mom cried. My dad gripped the armrest of his chair. Then the bridal room door opened. Emma walked out in her white dress with a veil. She was smiling, not knowing what was happening. She took 2 steps and saw the screen. Her face went from pink to gray. She screamed, turn that off. Jake, what are you doing? I answered into the mic, I'm showing the truth, Emma. Your truth. She ran toward Kyle, who was standing there with his mouth open. Tell them it's not true. Kyle looked at me, then at the guests, then at the screen. He turned and ran. He just ran through the hall toward the exit, tripped over a chair, and fell. Everyone watched. He got up and ran out to the parking lot. Emma was left alone. She screamed at me that I was crazy, that I faked everything, that she would sue me. Then Patricia, her mother, stood up. She walked up to her daughter and said, calmly but loud enough for everyone to hear, you have disgraced our family. I didn't know you were like this. Get out. Emma cried. Not tears of remorse, tears of rage. She took off her shoes and ran out after Kyle. The dress dragged through the mud. I turned off the presentation and said into the mic, friends and family. There will be no wedding. But the bar is paid for. The food is paid for. I invite everyone to dinner in my honor, in honor of a man who didn't let himself be fooled." Half the guests applauded. The other half sat in shock. My parents hugged me. Emma's sister Megan came over and said, "You were harsh. But she deserved it." We hugged. The next day, I filed the lawsuit. Berger worked like an animal. We demanded reimbursement of the $48,000 stolen, plus $15,000 for emotional distress, plus $10,000 for the rain. Total $73,000. But we knew they had assets. Kyle's apartment, bought for $320,000, remaining mortgage $280,000, and his car. Emma had nothing except an account we had already frozen. The judge issued a preliminary order freezing all of Kyle and Emma's accounts a week after the lawsuit. Kyle couldn't even withdraw money for food. He called me on November 15th. I recorded the call. "Kyle. Jake, you've gone too far. I'll pay you back, just drop the suit." "Jake. Pay me back with what? The money you spent on hotels? Or the money you and Emma stole from our account?" "Kyle. It was her idea. She said she was tired of you, that you were boring, that she wanted to be with me. I loved her." "Jake. You fucked her with my money, Kyle. You slept in a bed I paid for. You ate my food. You borrowed from me when you were in debt. And you call that love?" "Kyle." Pause. "I hate you." "Jake. Likewise. See you in court." The trial was in January. Kyle hired a lawyer, some young woman who was clearly out of her league. Berger tore her apart. He showed all 42 pieces of evidence, GPS, audio, screenshots, bank statements. The judge asked Kyle, "Mr. Thompson, do you deny that you received money from Ms. Wright knowing it belonged to Mr. Reed?" Kyle said, "I thought it was her savings." The judge, "But you knew she didn't earn $48,000 in 8 months on top of her expenses?" Kyle was silent. The judge ordered them to jointly pay me $97,000 to $73,000 principal plus $24,000 in court costs and penalties. Kyle had to sell the apartment. But the bank, upon learning of the court ruling, investigated the source of the down payment. It turned out that $30,000 of the down payment had been transferred from Emma's account, which had been funded by my money. The bank called Kyle in for a meeting and said, "You provided false information about the source of funds. We are revoking the mortgage. You have 30 days to pay off $280,000. He couldn't. The apartment was auctioned off. It sold for $290,000, of which the bank took its $280,000, and the remaining $10,000 went to pay Kyle's other debts. He was left with nothing. The car, that Ford Bronco, was sold at auction for $18,000. That money also went to me as partial payment of the debt. In the end, I received about $50,000 from the sale of Kyle's assets and another $15,000 from selling Emma's things, her bags, jewelry, anything that could be seized. The rest of the debt they'll be paying from their wages for the rest of their lives." Emma lost her job the week after the wedding. Her boss was at the wedding and saw the presentation. He fired her for violating corporate ethics, in reality, for using work email to plan the fraud. I sent him screenshots of her conversations from her work account, emma.wright@bloomdigital.com, to Kyle at k.thompson@dataflow.com. Transfer another $5,000 today. Jake won't notice. HR did an investigation and fired her without severance. I thought the story was over. I went back to work, to biking, to quiet evenings with beer and TV shows. I didn't want to see anyone. I hated people. I hated women. I thought every smile was a lie. Therapy, which I started in December, helped, but slowly. My therapist, Dr. Mendez, said, "Jake, you don't have to forgive. But you have to stop checking the GPS of strangers on the street." It was a joke, but there was truth in it. I had become paranoid. Then, on April 12th, I got a call from Tara. I mentioned her in the short version, but let me expand on this line now. Tara is Lisa's sister. She's 29, a psychologist, works at a school for autistic children. I met her at a Starbucks on April 15th. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, with short hair and a nose ring. She didn't look like a model. She looked like someone who reads books in the evenings and knows how to brew tea properly. Tara said, "Lisa moved to another city. She didn't want anything to do with this. She felt guilty for not telling you sooner, but Emma threatened her." Emma said she'd send fake cheating photos to Lisa's husband if Lisa said a single word. Lisa has 2 young kids. She was scared. I don't blame her, but when I was helping her pack, I found an old USB drive that Emma had left at their house a year ago. I looked at what was on it. Jake, it was so bad. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights. She put the drive on the table. I took it. At home, I plugged it into a laptop that never connects to the internet and started going through it. The drive had 127 files. Folders. Jake, Mark_Chicago, Steve_Philly, Travis_Pittsburgh, Bill_Indianapolis. I opened the Mark_Chicago folder. Inside were a scan of Mark Kaminsky's passport, age 34, a programmer. Screenshots of his online banking, login and password saved in a text file. Telegram conversations where Emma, under the name Sweet Emma_Chicago, wrote to him, "Honey, I want so badly to be with you, but I have student debt. If you help me with $50,000, I'll move to you." Mark replied, "I transferred $20,000, but I don't have any more. Emma, take out a loan. We'll be together forever." Mark transferred another $30,000. 2 months later, he wrote, "You disappeared. I lost everything. The bank is taking my apartment." The last file in the folder was a screenshot of a news headline. Chicago programmer commits suicide, leaves note, "She promised to love me." I didn't cry. I was in a rage that turned into ice. I opened the Steve_Philly folder. Same pattern. A man, 41, divorced, works as a pharmacist. Emma conned him out of $80,000. Steve is alive but lost his house and now lives in his brother's garage. The Travis_Pittsburgh folder, 27 years old, truck driver. Only $15,000, but he filed for bankruptcy. Then I opened the Jake folder. There were videos, 2 recordings made by a hidden camera she had set up in the bedroom in our house. The camera was in the fireplace chimney, which we never used. In the videos, I saw myself sleeping. Then Emma comes in, sits on the edge of the bed, and looks at me. Then she takes out her phone and types a message. In one video, she whispers, "Another $10,000 and I'm free." I watched myself, so trusting, so stupid. I felt sick. But the worst was something else. In the Jake folder, there was an Excel file. A list of all my assets, passwords, bank access codes, even my work account access. She was planning to withdraw money from my work 401k. I worked for a company that allowed withdrawals in case of financial hardship. She had already prepared a forged request in my name. I called the FBI the next day. Not the police, not the local department. The FBI. I said to the woman on the other end, "I have evidence of serial fraud, identity theft, contributing to a suicide, and illegal intimate recording. There are at least 4 victims, 1 deceased." She connected me to Agent Jones. Agent Jones arrived 2 days later. With him was Agent Martinez. They were in plain clothes, but I could tell immediately, ex-military. I gave them the USB drive. I kept a copy for myself. They looked at the first few files, and Agent Jones said, "Mr. Reed, you just handed us a case that could put this woman away for 20 years. We're opening an investigation immediately." They found Emma in Idaho, in the city of Boise. She was working as a barista at a coffee shop called Java Haven, under the name Emma Stone, her mother's maiden name. They arrested her on April 28 at 8 a.m. Customers filmed as 2 men in jackets reading, "FBI," put handcuffs on her right behind the counter. She screamed, "Why? I didn't do anything." She was charged with 11 counts, including wire fraud, up to 20 years. Aggravated identity theft, mandatory 2 years. Contributing to a suicide, a felony in Illinois, up to 5 years. Unauthorized recording of intimate scenes, up to 3 years. Kyle was arrested 3 days later. He tried to fly to Mexico but was taken off a flight at Dallas Airport. He was charged with complicity in fraud and money laundering. He made a deal with prosecutors, testified against Emma in exchange for 4 years instead of 10. Emma refused a deal. She went to court screaming, "I didn't kill anyone." Mark was mentally unstable, but the prosecution had screenshots of her conversation with Mark where she wrote, "If you don't transfer the money, I'll tell everyone you raped me. You'll have no job and no friends." Mark replied, "You're a monster." Her last message to him, "Yeah, but you still love me." The judge sentenced Emma to 12 years in federal prison without the possibility of early release. She cried. For the first time, I saw real tears in her eyes. Not hysterics, not acting. She realized her life was over. As they led her away, she looked at me and said, "You won. But you'll never be happy. You're as broken as I am." I replied, "I'm not broken. I just fixed what you broke. Right now, I'm sitting on the porch of my house. I bought a small house with a bit of land, 40 minutes outside the city. I have a dog, a golden retriever named Log. I learned how to barbecue. I go to therapy every 2 weeks. I still check up on people, that hasn't gone away. But I don't put GPS trackers on strangers' cars anymore. I got $97,000 from the lawsuit. Out of that, I gave $20,000 to Mark's sister. She refused, but I insisted. I donated $10,000 to a fund for victims of romance fraud. The rest I put into an investment account." Kyle served 2 of his 4 years, released early for good behavior last month. I heard he's working as a pizza delivery driver in Omaha. His mom died of cancer last year. He didn't come to the funeral. I found out from a mutual acquaintance. Emma is in a prison in Texas. I sometimes go to the BOP website and type in her number 287640089. Release date, 2035. She'll be 44 when she gets out. No profession, no money, no friends. Her mother Patricia moved to Florida and doesn't speak to her. Her sister Megan has blocked her everywhere. Now about Tara. Yes, I called her a week after we met at Starbucks. We met again, and then again. She turned out to be completely normal. She knows the whole story. She said, "You're not a psychopath. You're a victim who learned to defend himself. But if you ever put a GPS on my car, I'm calling the cops." We laughed. We've been together for 8 months. It's strange, trusting someone again. But she's a psychologist, and she understands my triggers. When I have a panic attack, she just sits next to me and stays quiet. She doesn't say, "Everything will be fine." She says, "I'm here." That's enough. Recently, I came across the box with all the printouts of the evidence, 120 pages. I thought about burning it. But then I thought, no. This is a monument to my stupidity and my victory. I put the box back in the attic. Reddit, if you've read this far, thank you. I'm not telling anyone to take revenge. I'm telling you not to be blind. If something feels wrong, check it. If you feel a lie, it probably is. Trust, but verify. And remember, sometimes your best friend and the love of your life can both be common thieves. And yeah, Tara is sleeping in the next room right now. Log. The dog is at my feet. I'm happy. Not the way I was before, that naive, stupid happiness. But a real, tired, calm happiness of someone who knows what people are capable of and still chooses to believe. Ask me anything. I'll answer whatever doesn't break the subreddit's rules. Update. I gave the USB drive to the FBI. I destroyed my copy. Don't ask how I got it. My lawyer said not to talk about it. Update 2. No. I don't regret a single day I spent gathering evidence. It saved other people's lives. If I had just walked away, she would have found the next guy. Update 3. Yes, Tara and I are planning to get married in a year. The prenup will be written in a way that not even Emma could fake it. Just kidding. Or not.